All right, ready to dive deep into how to totally nail that sheet metal worker interview.
Let's do it.
We've got some awesome resources lined up for this. A career guide, a whole guide dedicated to interview prep, and to top it off, we'll be looking at RoleCatcher.
Oh yeah, RoleCatcher's an AI platform that's going to help you really fine-tune those answers and stand out from the crowd.
Exactly. We're going to equip you with everything you need, not just to answer the questions, but to genuinely impress those hiring managers. It's about showing them you're the perfect fit.
We'll definitely cover all of that.
Okay, so before we jump into the interview questions themselves, let's take a step back and understand what a career in sheet metal work actually looks like.
Makes sense.
Our career guide paints this really interesting picture of sheet metal workers being kind of like the unsung heroes behind so many structures we see every day.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, you think about those massive HVAC systems in big commercial buildings or even just the gutters on your house.
Exactly. It's all sheet metal work.
And it's not just about putting pieces together, right? It's about precision, problem solving,
Oh, for sure.
and knowing how to work with all the different types of sheet metal to create these incredibly important structures. Plus, with technology like CAD software becoming more and more common these days, you're not just using your hands, you're using your brain.
Right. Using your brain to design and plan these projects. So it's a mix of hands-on and high-tech, it seems.
Exactly.
And speaking of high-tech, CAD software. That's a whole other skill set that I bet interviewers are going to want to hear about, especially if it's mentioned in the job description.
Absolutely. And that's where RoleCatcher can be super helpful. Because its AI is designed to analyze those job descriptions, flag those key skills that you really need to highlight in your answers.
So like RoleCatcher is giving you a heads up saying, hey, make sure you talk about your experience with AutoCAD or SolidWorks.
Exactly. Or whatever specific software they're using. It's all about making your responses really targeted to that specific job. Showing them you've done your homework.
Okay, so we've got the technology angle covered. But let's be real for a moment. This is a job that requires you to be pretty physically fit, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You're often on your feet, lifting those heavy materials, sometimes working at heights.
Yeah, and sometimes in some pretty tough weather conditions, too.
So it's definitely not a desk job.
It's a trade where you need to be physically strong and have a really solid work ethic.
Makes sense. But I imagine there's also something really satisfying about working with your hands, seeing a project come together.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's something really rewarding about that, seeing those tangible results of your work, knowing that you're building things that are going to contribute to people's comfort and safety.
And speaking of rewards, our guide mentions that sheet metal workers have a pretty good employment outlook these days.
Right.
Is that connected to the whole sustainability movement that we're seeing everywhere?
Definitely. I mean, buildings are a huge source of energy consumption, and sheet metal is being used in more and more ways to make them energy efficient.
Like how so?
Think about high-tech ventilation systems, insulated metal panels, or even things like reflective roofing that help keep buildings cool in the summer.
Interesting. So not only is this a job with good stability and earning potential, but you're also kind of contributing to a greener future.
It is, and the career path itself has quite a bit of variety. You might start as an apprentice, but as you gain experience, you could specialize in certain areas,
Oh, and like what?
like architectural, sheet metal work, maybe even move into more of a supervisory role, managing whole projects and teams.
Cool. Okay, so we've got a good overview of what the career looks like. Now comes the part that probably makes a lot of people nervous, the interview itself.
Yeah?
We've got 9 common questions here. We're going to break down each one, give you the insider tips you need to answer them like a pro.
And don't forget, RoleCatcher can give you even more personalized feedback on your answers. It's almost like having a mock interview where you can practice and refine your responses till you feel super confident.
Oh, I love that. Okay, first question. What motivated you to pursue a career in sheet metal work? Seems simple enough, but I bet there's a right and a wrong way to answer this.
There definitely is. This is your chance to show them that you're genuinely interested in the trade.
Right.
Don't just give them a generic answer like it seems like a good job. Talk about what specifically appeals to you.
Like what?
Is it the problem-solving aspect, the craftsmanship, the fact that you're building things that last? Think about it, what really draws you to this field.
Right, so it's about showing them you've actually thought about it, That this isn't just a random application you're sending out. You're actually passionate about this particular career path. Now, what kind of follow-up question do you think they might ask after that?
They might dig a little deeper and ask about a specific project or aspect of sheet metal work that you find particularly interesting.
Like to test if you've actually done any research.
Yeah, exactly. So come prepared to talk about something that really sparked your curiosity, maybe something you read about, something that shows you're engaged with the field.
Good point.
Yeah.
Okay, question number 2. Can you describe your experience with sheet metal fabrication?
Here's where you get to showcase your skills and your knowledge. So mention any formal training or certifications you have, the types of sheet metal you've worked with, and the specific tools and techniques you're comfortable using.
Right. It's almost like you're showing them your toolbox, but instead of hammers and drills, it's all about your experience and your expertise.
Exactly.
Now, if I were the interviewer, I might ask you to walk me through a specific project you worked on.
That's a really good example of a follow-up question.
That way I could see how you actually apply those skills in a real-world setting, not just that you can list them off.
Yeah, they want to see how you think.
Okay, next up is a big one. How do you ensure that your work meets all safety and quality standards? This feels like a question where they're really trying to understand your work ethic and attention to detail.
Absolutely. Safety is the most important thing in this field.
Right.
They need to know that you take it seriously. So don't just give a vague answer about following the rules. Be specific. Talk about the safety procedures you follow, how you stay updated on industry standards, and even how you personally contribute to a safe work environment. It's about being proactive.
So it's about showing them that you're not just waiting for someone to tell you what to do, but you're thinking about safety and quality in every single step of your work.
Right.
What do you think? What kind of follow-up question might they ask here?
They could ask you about a specific time you spotted a potential hazard on a job site and what you did to address it.
Yeah, to see if you're willing to speak up when something isn't right.
Absolutely. They want to know you're not just aware of safety protocols, but you're ready to take action when needed. Okay, moving on to question 4. How do you stay up to date with the latest sheet metal fabrication techniques and technologies?
This one ties back to what we were talking about earlier.
Right, the CAD software, those advanced cutting machines.
It's a field that's constantly changing, so they want someone who's committed to learning and growing.
Exactly. So when you answer this, mention any industry publications you read, workshops or conferences you've attended, online resources. You use anything that shows you're actively seeking out new information and keeping those skills sharp.
And I think it's important to demonstrate that you're not afraid of new technology. In fact, you're eager to learn and master it. What kind of follow-up question do you think might come up here?
Maybe something like, what emerging trend in sheet metal work are you most interested in, and why? It's a way to see if you're thinking ahead, not just stuck in the past.
Right. Shows you're excited about the future of the field. Okay, now for a question that really gets into your problem-solving abilities. Can you describe a time when you had to troubleshoot and solve a complex sheet metal fabrication problem?
Ooh, yeah, they're definitely trying to see how you think with this one.
It feels like they're getting inside your head a bit.
For sure. Choose a specific example that highlights your analytical thinking and how you come up with creative solutions. And don't just state the problem and then jump to the solution.
Right.
Walk them through your entire thought process. How did you first approach the problem? What resources did you turn to? How did you communicate with your team throughout the process? The details are important here.
It's like you're telling a story.
It is.
But instead of a fairy tale, it's a story about how you triumphed over a sheet metal challenge. To really test your mettle, I bet they might ask. Looking back, what could you have done differently to solve that fabrication problem more efficiently?
Ooh, that's a great point, because it shows you're not just focused on finding a solution, you're always thinking about how to improve and be even better.
Exactly. Okay, question number 6, all about time management. How do you prioritize and manage your workload when you're working on multiple projects at the same time? This feels crucial in any job, but especially in a field like construction, where things are always moving and changing.
Absolutely. Deadlines are tight. So tell them about your system for staying organized.
Okay.
Maybe you have a go-to to-do list, a calendar app you swear by, or some combination of different tools, whatever works for you. But the key is to emphasize your ability to prioritize, delegate effectively, and communicate clearly with your team. Those are all key skills they're looking for.
What kind of follow-up question do you think might come up here?
Maybe they'll ask you to give a specific example of a time when you had to juggle multiple deadlines or a sudden change in project scope. How did you handle that pressure? That's what they want to know. It shows you can adapt and deliver even when things get hectic.
Okay, we're on a roll here. Question number 7. How do you ensure you're working efficiently and effectively when you're fabricating those sheet metal parts?
All right, time to showcase your knowledge of best practices. Talk about your approach to minimizing waste, optimizing your workspace, using those most efficient fabrication techniques you've learned.
And maybe even share some personal tips or tricks you've developed over time, like I always double-check my measurements before I cut anything, or I organize my tools in a specific way so I don't waste time searching for them.
Yeah, exactly. Those little things make a difference.
What kind of follow-up do you think might come up here?
They might ask, what steps do you take to ensure the accuracy of your measurements and cuts? When you're working with sheet metal, precision matters. So showing them you're detail-oriented is important.
Absolutely. Okay, on to question 8. How do you communicate with clients to make sure you're meeting their needs and specifications? This one's all about those people skills, which are just as important as your technical skills, right?
Oh, for sure. In any job, communication is key.
Right.
But especially when you're working directly with clients. So describe how you actively listen to them, ask clarifying questions, and keep them in the loop throughout the entire process.
Don't forget about conflict resolution, too.
Oh, right.
Definitely.
Because those are bound to happen in any construction project, right?
For sure. So how do you handle disagreements or misunderstandings with clients?
They might even ask you to share a specific experience where you had to communicate a delay or a change in the project scope to a client.
To see how you handle those tricky conversations.
Exactly, because you need to be able to navigate those situations with professionalism and diplomacy.
And that's something that RoleCatcher can help you practice too, right?
Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention that. RoleCatcher can actually simulate those tough conversations and give you feedback on how you come across. It's a great way to build your confidence.
Awesome. Okay, on to our last question for this part of the deep dive. How do you approach working in a team environment when fabricating sheet metal parts? Construction is a team sport, after all, so they want to know you can play well with others.
Definitely. Highlight your communication skills, your ability to collaborate, and your willingness to both lead and follow depending on what the situation calls for. And maybe even share a quick story about a successful team project you were part of.
So make it real for them.
Exactly. Emphasize your specific role and contribution to that project. And of course, they're probably going to follow up with something like, how do you handle conflicts or disagreements within the team? Can you give me a specific example?
Because, let's be real, even in the most awesome teams, there are going to be some bumps in the road sometimes.
Absolutely. They want to see that you can handle those conflicts constructively and professionally. And guess what? RoleCatcher has you covered there too. They provide sample scenarios and feedback to help you craft those responses.
Perfect. Okay, wow, we just covered 9 interview questions. I feel like I could apply for a sheet metal worker job myself now. But seriously, I think we've given our listeners a solid foundation for their interview prep.
Absolutely.
And remember, RoleCatcher is an amazing resource that can add that extra layer of personalization and feedback, helping you tailor your answers and make you stand out from all the other candidates.
Exactly. It's like having a secret weapon in your job search toolkit.
Love that. But acing the interview is just the first step. Once you land that job, there's a whole career path ahead of you.
There is.
Our career guide actually outlines 4 stages of a sheet metal worker's career, and I think it would be helpful to talk about those a bit.
Yeah, it's like getting a sneak peek into your future self. It would be interesting to explore those different stages and see how the role grows and changes as you gain more experience and skills.
Let's do it. We'll dive into that right after this.
Sure, Derek.
Perfect. Okay, so
Welcome back. So before the break, we were just about to get into the different stages of a sheet metal worker's career.
right, because it's really interesting to see how this job can actually evolve over time,
Yeah.
Like what can you look forward to as you gain experience?
It's like a sneak peek into your future self.
Exactly. So let's start at the beginning, the entry level.
Okay.
What are you typically doing at this stage? What kind of responsibilities do you have?
At the entry level, you're mainly assisting those more experienced workers. learning the ropes, getting those basic tasks down
The
pat, like
fundamentals.
measuring, cutting, installing those sheet metal components. It's all about building a solid foundation.
Right, mastering those core skills.
The career guide actually mentioned an example of an entry-level worker who was tasked with meticulously labeling every single piece of cut metal for a complex ductwork system.
Wow.
It might sound pretty simple, but that kind of organization is absolutely crucial to making sure everything is installed correctly.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's like a giant metal jigsaw puzzle, but the stakes are much higher.
Exactly.
Okay, so you've paid your dues at the entry level. You're starting to feel more confident what happens next. What does that intermediate stage look like?
So as an intermediate sheet metal worker, you're starting to take on more responsibility. You're independently constructing those roofs, ducts, and gutters, interpreting more complex plans, and you might even start mentoring newer workers coming in.
Oh, cool. So you're not just building those structures, you're building your leadership skills too.
Exactly. And the guide highlighted an interesting example of an intermediate worker who got to lead a small team on a roof installation project.
Oh, wow. That must have felt good.
You know, it's a great example of how you're not just developing your technical skills, but also those leadership qualities, which are really important for advancing in any career.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about the experience level? What kind of things are you doing at that stage?
Okay, so at the experienced level, you're really considered a master of your craft. You're leading the construction of really complex metal structures, figuring out cost-effective solutions, and you're even collaborating with engineers and architects to make sure everything is structurally sound and meets those specifications.
Wow, so you're not just following plans anymore. You're actually part of that bigger design and problem-solving process.
Exactly. And there's an interesting story in the guide about an experienced worker who actually spotted a flaw in the design of a ventilation system that could have negatively impacted the building's energy efficiency. By speaking up, they not only saved the client a lot of money, but also really showcased their deep understanding of how sheet metal works in the real world.
Yeah, that's a great example of how experience can lead to those really valuable insights. Okay, and then there's the senior level, the top of the mountain. What does it take to reach that stage?
Think of it as a combination of experience, expertise, and leadership. You know, at that senior level, you're overseeing multiple projects at once. You might be developing standardized procedures for the company, mentoring those newer generations of workers.
Like passing on that wisdom.
Exactly, and really shaping the future of the company or even the whole industry.
Yeah.
There's actually a great story in the guide about a senior sheet metal worker who took the initiative to create and implement a new safety training program that was used across multiple construction sites.
Oh, wow.
So they weren't just sharing their knowledge, they were creating a whole culture of safety and ensuring those best practices were being followed everywhere.
That's awesome. That's a real leader.
It is. So you can see how this career path offers so much potential for growth and impact.
Definitely. But let's get back to those interview questions because landing that first job is obviously the first step to this amazing career journey.
Right. Let's make sure you're totally prepped to shine in that interview. Where were we?
We left off on question number 6, all about time management. So how do you prioritize and manage your workload when you're working on like 5 projects at once?
Yeah, that's a big one. Because deadlines in construction are serious business. So what you want to do is tell them about your system for staying organized.
Okay.
Whether it's a to-do list you can't live without, a calendar app on your phone, or some other combination of tools, whatever works best for you. But the key here is to highlight your ability to prioritize tasks, delegate effectively when you need to, and communicate clearly with your team.
Makes sense. It's all about being on top of things.
Exactly. And a good interviewer will probably follow up with something like, can you give me a specific example of a time when you had to juggle multiple deadlines, or maybe a sudden change in the scope of a project? How did you handle that?
They want to see how you perform under pressure.
They do. It shows them you can adapt and still deliver great work even when things get a little crazy.
Okay, next question. This is number 7. How do you ensure you're working efficiently and effectively when fabricating sheet metal parts? This one feels like it's all about showing them you're not just a worker, you're thinking critically about every step of the process.
Absolutely. It's about showcasing your knowledge of best practices in the field. So talk about how you minimize waste, streamline your workflow, and use those efficient fabrication techniques you've learned.
Right, so it's not just about getting the job done, it's about getting it done well and making sure nothing is wasted.
Right. And, you know, I think it's good to even share some personal tips or tricks you've picked up along the way.
Like what?
Maybe something like, I always double check those measurements before I make a cut, just to be sure. Or I keep my workspace really organized so I don't waste time looking for the right tool. Those little things show you care about efficiency.
I like that. What kind of follow-up do you think might come up here?
They might ask. Okay, so what steps do you actually take to ensure your measurements and cuts are super accurate? Because precision really matters when you're working with sheet metal, so showing them you're detail-oriented is super important.
Okay, next one is question 8. How do you communicate with clients to make sure you're meeting their needs and hitting those specifications they've laid out? This is about those soft skills now, right?
Mm.
Because communication is key in any job, but I imagine it's especially important in construction, where you're dealing with these complex projects and so many different people.
Communication is everything in this field.
Right. So what should people focus on when they answer this one?
You want to show them that you're not just a skilled tradesperson, you're also a really good communicator. You can listen to your clients, understand their needs, ask clarifying questions, and keep them informed throughout the whole process.
And you know what else?
What's that?
Don't forget about conflict resolution.
Oh, right. Conflicts are bound to happen on any construction project.
How do you handle disagreements or misunderstandings that might come up with clients?
That's something they really want to know because it shows them you can handle those sticky situations professionally. And guess what? That's another area where RoleCatcher can really help you prepare. They can actually simulate those tougher conversations and give you feedback on your communication style.
Wow, I love that. Okay, we're on to our last question for this episode. How do you approach working in a team environment when you're fabricating those sheet metal parts? Construction is a team sport, so they need to know you can play well with others, Dan.
For sure. This is where you highlight those communication skills, your ability to collaborate effectively, and being willing to both lead and follow, depending on what's needed at the moment.
Right, being flexible.
And it's always good to have a story ready to share about a successful team project that you were part of. Talk about your specific role and how you contributed to the team's success.
It makes it more real for them, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Now, of course, they're probably going to ask a follow-up question like, okay, but how do you handle conflicts that might come up within the team? Can you give me a specific example?
Because even on the best teams, disagreements happen.
Absolutely. So they're looking for someone who can handle the situations constructively and professionally. And again, RoleCatcher can help you prepare for those tougher questions, providing you with those sample scenarios and giving you personalized feedback on your responses.
Awesome. I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We've explored what a sheet metal worker's job really looks like, tackled some tough interview questions, and even gotten a sneak peek into potential career paths. And all along the way, we've highlighted how RoleCatcher can be such a valuable resource, helping you really tailor those answers and stand out from the competition.
It really is like having a secret weapon. But even with all the prep in the world, you have to remember this industry is constantly evolving, technology is changing rapidly, and there are always new challenges popping up.
So how do we stay ahead of the curve? What does the future hold for sheet metal workers? What skills are going to be most important? And that's something to think about, right?
Exactly. It's something to explore further. Maybe even use RoleCatcher to see what trends they're seeing, what skills are in demand. It's all about staying curious and adaptable in this field.
Great advice. Well, I think that wraps up this deep dive. Thanks for listening, everybody, and good luck out there. All right, welcome back to the final part of our sheet metal deep dive.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
It has. We've covered a lot of ground, those hands-on skills, the ins and outs of acing those interview questions.
Yeah, we really dug deep into what it takes to succeed in this field.
But now let's look ahead. Because the construction industry is always changing, right? Technology is evolving at a crazy pace.
No, yeah, for sure. It's a dynamic field.
We touched on things like CAD software and those automated cutting machines. But I'm curious what else is on the horizon. What other advancements are shaping the future of sheet metal work? What do you think?
Well, one area that I find particularly fascinating is the whole world of 3D modeling and printing. Just imagine designing these super intricate sheet metal components in a virtual space.
Right, like on a computer.
Yeah, exactly. And then having those designs printed with incredible precision.
Wow, that sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie. But how would that actually change things for a sheet metal worker? Like, what would they need to know?
It would definitely require a whole new skill set. Sheet metal workers would need to be proficient in that 3D modeling software, understanding not just how to design a component, but how to design it specifically for 3D printing. Because there are certain considerations there,
Right, so it's not just about bending and welding metal anymore.
Mm,
It's about understanding how these digital tools can actually enhance the whole fabrication process.
exactly. And that's why continuous learning is so crucial in this field. Those who embrace these new technologies are going to have a serious advantage.
Right, it's like leveling up your skills, but in real life.
Yeah.
So 3D printing, that's one big thing. What other trends do you see influencing the future of sheet metal work?
Well, robotics is another big one. I mean, robots are already used in some manufacturing settings, but they're getting more sophisticated all the time,
I can imagine.
more adaptable. We could see robots helping out with all sorts of tasks, the heavy lifting, those repetitive tasks, even super intricate welding operations.
Wow, that would definitely make the work safer and more efficient.
Right.
But what about the human element?
That's a good question. But it's important to remember robots are just tools, right?
Okay.
They still need skilled operators to program them, maintain them, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
So it's not about robots replacing humans, it's more about robots and humans working together as a team.
Exactly. The sheet metal workers of the future are going to need to be comfortable working alongside these advanced technologies. They'll need to be problem solvers, be able to think critically, and adapt to new situations quickly.
And I bet RoleCatcher can help with that too, right?
Absolutely. RoleCatcher's AI can analyze those job trends, identify those emerging skills that employers are looking for, and then help you tailor your resume, your cover letter, and even your interview answers to really showcase those in-demand skills.
So even as the industry changes, RoleCatcher's there to keep you ahead of the game.
It's like having a personal career coach who's always got your back.
Love it. Well, I think we've reached the end of our sheet metal deep dive.
Time flies when you're having fun, huh?
It really does. It's been amazing to see how this trade, which has been around for ages, is embracing innovation and shaping the future of construction. For anyone listening who loves working with their hands, enjoys solving problems, and wants to see those tangible results of their work, I definitely say explore the world of sheet metal.
It's a career that's both challenging and rewarding, with tons of opportunity for growth. And with the right tools and resources, like RoleCatcher, you can set yourself up for success from day one.
So, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of sheet metal work. We hope you learned something new and maybe even discovered a passion for this amazing field.
Keep learning, keep building, and keep striving for excellence.
Until next time.